What was the big incident at your high school?
Oh, I'll go first. Mine's better. So there was always a lot of fuck shit happening at my school. But the worst and the funniest has to be when somebody took a shit in a kid's backpack in the locker room. This kid was like brand new, a freshman. He had just moved here. And he like gets out of gym, goes to the locker room, puts on his shirt, and he's like, why is it fucking wet? He's like, oh, whatever. Then he goes to class, tries to get his shit out, and when he tries to get his shit out, there's actual shit in there. Then he like smells his clothes, and he realizes it's piss. They pissed on his clothes, and he was wearing pee-pee clothes. Like, can you imagine you go to class, wet-ass clothes, and then you're like, oh, where's my stuff? Oh, there's shit in here. The entire school went nuts. It was like everyone was throwing accusations. There were so many conspiracies. They're like, I bet it was him and he did it for attention. Or I bet it was the gym teacher. I don't know. The kid got on the news.
The senior class of 2011 decided to do a senior prank that turned out to be quite disgraceful. So, in 2012, our class decided to do it big. On the last night of our Christmas break before coming back to school, we broke into the high school with some keys stolen from one of the teachers. Once inside, a couple of the students ran off to the room that housed all of the cameras and unplugged everything so we wouldn't get caught. After that, chaos soon followed. People took baby oil, shaving cream, and marbles and put those in front of every doorway, down the stairs, and throughout the hall. Someone brought in some spray paint and spray painted Thug Life and 2012 We In This Thing on the walls. Others took desks from upstairs and threw them downstairs, which broke a few of those. Fire extinguishers were set off throughout the school as well, which got into the food supply and the copier machine. And there's still a little bit more, so I'm going to have to make a part 2. Part 2. Alright, so now we're towards the end of the prank. People put window chalk on all of the windows, mirrors, and door mirror window things, whatever. Somebody went into the science lab and they pressed the fountain thing that washes out your eyes, and also, like the shower thing or whatever. And since our school was pretty old, the pipes weren't the greatest at draining, so that flooded a portion of the school. And then to top it all off, we dumped a 50-pound bag of corn in the cafeteria, and we set loose a wild hog. After that, we took off like a bat out of hell and ran out of that school and went home. Now, here's a little bit of proof for you guys. So, yeah, if you guys want to hear about what happened in the morning whenever we showed up, let me know. Part 3. So the next morning, whenever I drove up to the school, as I drove up, I could see out front that there was 6 to 7 squad cars parked in front of the building. And that's when reality started to kick in. I parked in the student parking lot, and as I got out of my car, I noticed that everybody was walking to the new gym, which is a completely separate building from the building that we did all the prank in. And so I followed suit and went inside and sat down. Once the bell rang for the first class to start, our superintendent came out, and he made a statement to the entire school. He was pissed. With 2 cops by his side, he addressed us, stating that if we were to come forward, we would be in less trouble than if he would have to find us. No one said a word. I'm going to have to make a part 4, so I'm going to make it here right now. Part 4. So after the superintendent came out and gave his opening statement, and no one said a word, we waited a couple of hours, and then he came back. He offered a $1,000 reward to anybody that would give up information leading to the arrest of any individual that took part in the prank. Still, nobody came forward. Finally, after like 3 or 4 hours of waiting in the new gym, they came back and told us that we could all go to class. Throughout the rest of the day, I could hear certain names being called over the intercom, telling them to come to the principal's office. People that I knew were also in the prank with me. So that day felt like it drug on forever. Finally, at the very end of the second to last class that I had that day, my name was called over the intercom. As I walked to the office, I was met by the superintendent outside, and he told me to follow him. And I followed him down this hall into what seemed like an interrogation room. And there's still a lot more to the story, so I'm going to have to make a part 5. Part 5. So at this point, I've been escorted to what I would call an interrogation room, and I'm sat down, and the superintendent sits across from me and starts to talk to me. He's obviously pretty pissed off, and so he asks me, he's like, "Where were you last night?" Now, I came up with a pretty good excuse as to where I was, which was by saying that I was at home playing Xbox, and I was going to have this whole spiel of like how I was going to show him proof. But then he was like, "Oh, you want to do it like this? You want to play like this? Okay, fine. I'll just go get the officer right now." So me being a little goody two shoes, I just instantly caved and was like, "Yeah, I was here last night." He was like, "Okay, yeah, I know. So what all did you do?" So I told him all that I did, but it wasn't a whole lot. So he started asking me who else was there with me. So I told him I don't know because we were all wearing masks and I couldn't see who all was there. After that, he told me to wait right there, and he got up and left. Part 6 is on the way. Part 6. Real quick, just wanted to say thanks to everybody that followed. 3,000 new followers is insane. You guys are awesome. Keep it up. Anyway, back to the story. So at this point, the superintendent had left, and I'm still sitting in this interrogation room, and I wait for probably about an hour before a cop finally shows up. He comes in, sits down, talks to me, tells me that he reads me my Miranda rights, and then asks if I want to make an official statement. And since I pretty much already admitted that I was guilty to the superintendent, I was like, sure, I'll go ahead and fill it out. Filled out the official statement, and then after that, he took me to a room with a lot of other people that were also in the prank. And we all just stood around there for probably like an hour, all wondering what was going to happen. Finally, after waiting for a little while, 3 or 4 officers walked in, and then they escorted everybody in that room out to their squad cars. At that point, we were taken to the county jail near us, and I'm going to have to make a part 7, so stay tuned. Part 7. So we get to jail. We go into a holding cell for a little while. They book us. It's later in the afternoon, so we don't get to have a judge set our bail, and we end up spending the night there. The next morning, we find out that our bail is set at $15,000, at which point we got our phone call. I called my parents. They came up and paid a bail bondsman $1,500 to bail me out. And yeah, so now we're about to get into the consequences of all of this. I go up to the school that day, which was like a Monday or a Tuesday or something, and once I got there, I'm immediately greeted by the principal. He tells me I'm not allowed to be on campus, so I go into his office. He, my parents, and I sit down and we have a talk. Come to find out, I am expelled from school. And there's a little bit more left of this, so part 8 should be the final part, and I'll upload that after this. Part 8. So after I went and talked to the principal, found out that I was expelled, I went home, and later on I ended up getting a letter in the mail from the court. I had a hearing set and had to get a lawyer. We went to court and eventually took a plea deal. The charge was set at a 3rd-degree felony as organized criminal activity, and it was brought down to a Class A misdemeanor. Consequences were that we ended up having to pay $946 in restitution, do 40 hours of community service, and have a year of probation. And instead of finishing the last semester at the high school, I had to go to an alternative school where we kind of got to work at our own pace. So I finished high school, the last semester of it, in like a week and had like a 9-month summer before starting college. So I did end up getting to walk at graduation, but only because we had to apologize to the school board. Now, if you want to hear about how I got caught, just let me know. So this is how we got caught on our senior prank. So apparently there was a different room that housed a different set of cameras for the outside. So there was one room for the inside cameras and then another room for the outside cameras. The inside cameras were the ones that we had people unplugged. The outside cameras were not unplugged. Now that caught a portion of us, but there was also 2 people that came forward and snitched, and they gave up a few names at least. And then on top of that, we were really stupid because someone made a Facebook page for the senior prank and who was all going to go. Like, people were saying, yes, we're going to go to this. So, yeah, it was pretty dumb. It's not like we hit it very well. But, yeah, so that's about it. If you guys have any more questions, let me know.
Okay, I win this one, hands down. So my high school was a brand new high school. We were the first grad class to go from grade 9 to grade 12, which means we had to come up with our own pranks. So I did a ton of research to find us the best grad prank of all time. I gathered the troops, I got the supplies, I made the props, I wrote the script. I was up till 2 a.m. and finally the day was here. I also created a fake Google account, so if we got in trouble, it wasn't on me. Boom! I put my high school up for sale! We had radio stations calling the school, we had the news calling the school, we had people trying to get in touch with us to figure out who did this and how it was so successful. We also had like 50 plus offers of people wanting to buy it.